All right, so let's keep going. We're only going to do a handful of slides in this particular video, and at that point you should have the information, at least most of the information that you're going to need to be able to answer the questions from the first handout, the one that's labeled slides 1 through 14. All right, so continuing on with the idea of activity-based costing, it says activity-based costing does not replace an existing job order process cost system. And that's true for a variety of reasons, because it's easy to understand with job order costing because each job has its own separate components, okay? But with both of these, with both the job order costing and process costing system, we still have all of the same elements involved. Our factory overhead is going to be our factory overhead. We still have direct labor. We still have direct materials costs. So those three things are going to be unchanged. The only difference is how we actually go about allocating those costs. And that's kind of what your second point here says. It says activity-based costing does segregate overhead into various cost pools to provide more accurate cost information. So we should probably say segregate overhead into more cost pools, and doing so creates more accurate information. Now we do want to, when we look at this point here, I would emphasize something. Activity-based costing, the use of activity-based costing is a cost in itself. So there is, when we look at this second point, we do need to understand from a business perspective. Let's take off our accounting hats for just a moment and just think about this from a business perspective. There is a cost-benefit relationship here. You know, we can get the most accurate cost possible if we want to divide these overhead costs into 370 different activity pools and cost drivers, but that's a very, very expensive process. So just keep in mind there is a cost-benefit analysis that needs to be done here as well. Okay, so again, biggest thing to take from this, activity-based costing supplements rather than replaces a traditional cost system. All right, looks like we have an example here of a company. Let's see, they're not making boots. It's an automotive anti-theft device manufacturer, and they have two products. The first product is the boot, and it says that this is a high volume item with sales totaling 25,000 units per year. And they have the club, a low volume item with sales totaling 5,000 units per year. Additional information says each product requires 1 hour of direct labor. So not only is direct labor easy to figure out anyway, each of these two products requires the exact same amount of direct labor. Total annual direct labor hours are 30,000. Well, that makes sense because each unit requires 1 hour, and we made 25,000 of the boot and 5,000 of the club, so we have 30,000 direct labor hours. And then it says direct labor cost is $12 per unit for each product. So it's essentially what they're telling us is that their employees make both the boot and the club. They're using the same employees, or at least paying them the same, no matter which product they are making. Now this next item is where it begins to get interesting. It says expected annual manufacturing overhead costs, $900,000. $900,000. Direct materials cost, the boot has $40 of cost per unit, and the club has $30 direct materials cost per unit. Well, whoop-de-doo. That's very easy to calculate. We're just going, for every unit we make, we're going to have $40 cost for the boot, and we're going to have $30 cost direct materials for the club. This is where our interesting allocation is going to be focused on. Why? Because it's dealing with overhead cost. And $900,000 is a lot of money. So this is what we would have under a traditional costing system, costing under traditional costing. Couldn't have said it better myself. Let's look at these two products and the manufacturing cost between them. We already said that direct materials are $40 per unit for the boot and $30 per unit for the club. We also said that it takes 1 hour of direct labor at a rate of $12 to make 1 unit of the boot and 1 unit of the club. So that's fine. This is the same here. This hasn't changed, even if we were going to use activity-based costing. But overhead is where we have the problem. We've allocated $30 of cost to the boot and $30 cost to the club, creating a total unit cost of $82 for the boot and $72 for the club. The $10 difference is all right here in direct materials. And this is how we got into this mess. Our predetermined overhead rate using direct labor hours, we took the $900,000 total overhead cost and we simply divided by the 30,000 direct labor hours. Remember, we made 30,000 units. Each unit takes 1 hour to manufacture. So we came up with a $30 predetermined overhead rate based on direct labor hours. Okay, so if we do that, what has occurred here? Well, we have to understand that 25,000 of these hours is for this boot product. Only 5,000 of these 30,000 hours are for the club. So if we were going to do this, we could still make this work, I suppose, because we only have 2 products in this company. We just can't do it the way that we've done it. We're going to have to take this 900,000 and at an absolute minimum, we're going to have to say that if we're going to use direct labor hours, we're going to say that 5/6 of it should go to the boot and 1/6 of it should go to the club. Now that's a pretty easy workaround because again, we only have 2 products here. But you can probably imagine how much stickier this gets if we're dealing with a very, very complex manufacturing environment. Okay, let's go ahead and end this video and look at some examples through our handout.